Hello, I'm about to fit a solar panel to our motorhome, and I've been through a number of YouTube videos and there's lots of build threads, and so I'm not going to do it quite in that style, but I'm going to point out what we've done to fit this to our motorhome. The usual solution is to use proper corners that are Sikaflex, that's the white adhesive, Sikaflex down, but we don't have those to hand, and so we've made our own mount. And there's a couple of points that I thought might be important. This is a 140 watt polycrystalline cell. I'll just lift it up and show you the specs. And that'll be running through an MPPT charger and into leisure batteries. Coming to the connectors, I have to extend these. So I bought actually a 15 metre cable, and the cable thickness I chose is thicker than this so as to minimise the resistance, and I cut that in half to form two cables of 7.5 metres, which is enough to get down to my control box with a little bit to spare. Coming over to the way we've mounted it, the actual solar panel is mounted into an aluminium frame. This is a single 1mm skin, this is actually a double skin, making it a little bit difficult to pinch up this way, and we want to put our screws in this way because I want, once the unit is mounted, to be able to remove the panel. The roof of the motorhome can't take screws and bolts through, so it has to be glued with the Sikaflex. This is 1mm alley. I'd like it a bit thicker, but it is strong enough for the task, and we will put some kind of thread seal so that it doesn't have to be tightened up very much. It's important that we want to be able to remove the whole solar panel, leaving the fixing in place. So we've adopted this system. Also roughen this bottom surface, which is going to be Sikaflexed to the top of the motorhome, as we don't want to put any bolts and screws through. Coming to the inside, what we've done here, actually we've custom made these nuts because they fit quite nicely. My son has a tap and die set, but you could use a regular nut. I don't know whether you can see, but I've also put a little bit of hot glue just to hold them in place, so that when we take the screws out, the mount stays in place and the solar panel can be conveniently removed. A couple of other points to mention are, firstly, that I've seen lots of people mounting these panels direct onto the roof. That would probably work perfectly well, but I think there's two reasons why it's not a good idea. The first of them is that if you get any moisture trapped underneath, I can quite see that over a period of time that might affect the cells and could lead to breakdown. And the second is that there's a great deal of heat falling upon these panels, and I have heard lots of people say that they become hot and less efficient when they're too hot. So it makes very good sense to leave an air gap underneath the panel, ideally 2 centimetres. In this case it's a bit less, it's about 1.5, but that should be enough to promote an air gap. However, that presents us then with another problem, which is that if we're bombing along a motorway at say 70 miles an hour and there's a wind coming from the head of us at say 50 miles an hour with gusts, then you could have a massive uplifting effect on the front of the panel, which would rip it off. We don't want to be doing that. So on this panel we've made a mount that runs the full length along the front edge, so that air can't get underneath the front. On the trailing side we've put two, they're actually 30 centimetres long, two sections at either corner, leaving that air gap so that there's enough air going to flow through to keep the space underneath dry and cool, but no chance of the whole unit lifting up at speed. This is a fairly big panel, so our plan is to put a small support in the middle. The idea would be that we don't actually connect that to anything other than to the top of the motorhome with a bit of Sikaflex, and that its normal position is to only barely be brushing the solar panel, not stressing it in any way, but it would just reduce a bit of bounce if you go over a heavy pothole or something like that. I'm not going to dwell much on the electrics. Other people have done this sort of thing in the past, perfectly adequately. The cables coming down from the solar panel come to here. I don't know which is which at the moment, so I'll test those with a voltmeter first, and they'll eventually end up in my little MPPT controller. The box above is a voltmeter which switches between the assistant battery for the main part of the motorhome and the leisure battery system. They're not fully charged at the moment. I've left them like that so that once the solar panel's mounted and running I can see the difference. This is where we're going to sight the solar panel crosswise across the back section of the motorhome here. The optional position would have been a long ways down the side here, but there's no particular advantage to that, and going in this way laterally means that I can pick up the cables and run them in a small duct along to an existing entrance point which actually connects to a cool air system. I've made a breach in that, sorry about the motorbike, I made a breach in that, and I'll connect that and use the Sikaflex to reseal it against rain. It looks a bit strange at the moment because it's up in the air, but that'll all be flat and will end up going underneath the solar panel here. Our motorhome lives underneath a nut tree, generally, a huge nut tree, and as a consequence is always dirty on the roof. So I've cleaned off the section that we're going to use, firstly with washing up liquid and water, and then I'll give it a wipe over with some thinners to make sure that the surface we're gluing to is completely clean. Here I've just drawn the lines to show where the glue is going to go. See the various points, and in the centre is a little plastic gizmo that I've made with a soft foam top, which let's prove it's soft and light. And the idea of this is that it doesn't actually touch the panel, but sits about maybe just barely touching, no preload, but so as to stop it bouncing because it's a fairly big panel. That'll be Sikaflex down in the same way. Whilst I'm doing this bit of film, the stuff I'm using is Sikaflex 512 Caravan. This is what everybody seems to recommend as being the right stuff for the job because it's got various weatherproofing elements. Here's a picture of the completed project. Solar panel in place, all glued down and ready to go.